Hello and welcome. I am Lopamudra Moitro and you are listening to my weekly podcast, What's in a Story, where I read stories from my books along with a small introduction about each. These stories are from my work as an anthropologist from across India and South Asia, and the introductions with each story helps to explain different related information about, say, maybe aspects like history, languages and literature, music, trade and economy, festivals, or facts about archaeology, and many other things which are all important to understand or get a meaning or a context of a story. In this second season, we will listen specially to narratives of and about water bodies from Asia, and this will include stories from the smallest of water bodies like wells or small ponds to lakes, rivers, or the sea and the ocean. Let's listen to today's episode in season 2 of What's in a Story. About today's story. The title of today's story is Pimpri or pimprir kawtha in Bengali, the original story being in Bengali. I'm going to read the English translation. The Ant Couple, Mr. and Mrs. Ant. From my book, Collected Works of Upendrakishore Ray Chowdhury, published by Aleph Book Company in 2023. Now, today's story is a little different from the rest of the stories of this season, as the story itself is very small and tiny, but within it is a lot of things. The little tiny structure of the story is packed with a lot of very significant aspects and features which makes it very important, and that is something that we will be looking in this segment of knowing about the story today. So this story, though small, however, is an important and interesting representation of an important part of folklore from almost all parts of the world. Also, the story weaves in itself certain important facts especially about the geography of India, and because the season of this present season of What's in a Story, we are looking at water bodies and their narratives of South Asia. So when I speak about the geography of the region, I specifically right now for the present story point towards the rivers, which of course transcends the boundaries, geographical boundaries, and so they in the present context also variously include the neighbouring countries of India, including Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan and Pakistan. Since the rivers of northern, northwestern, eastern and northeastern India share geographical spaces with a very large area, the stories of the rivers practically cuts through all the geographical boundaries and covers an equally large area as well. Most of these rivers are perennial rivers, and several of them originate from glaciers and flow through some of the most populous regions of the earth. These northern, western and eastern Indian rivers variously include the Indus and its 5 tributaries, including the Ravi, Beas, Satluj, Jhelum and Chenab, the Ganga and its many tributaries and distributaries, the Yamuna, the Brahmaputra and many others, and also there are several tributaries and distributaries as well. Now coming back to the main focus of today's story, I would like to explain an important aspect of folklore. Often they are very short stories or rhymes, which in Bengali we also call as chora, or anecdotes or proverbs and such other things which are narrated at the end of a main folklore, main story. These can be referred to as a kind of a meta story or a folklore closing. So, a folk tale or a fable will end, and this next story, this small tiny piece of narrative, an anecdote, a rhyme or a chora, is then narrated. Interestingly, these folklore closings are mostly shared by several stories of a language or a dialect, and can be also totally independent from the main storyline. That is the main story which has been just narrated, and thus often do not bear any connection to it. So these folklore closings are not story specific, but they form a part of the genre of a local oral literature rather. In India, there are many such examples from many languages, including Bengali, which I will be reading out in today's session. Also, several other, including Assamese, Oriya, Tripuri, Naga, and many others. Now, today's story is one such meta story or a folklore closing, and thus it is very short indeed, but it bears some significant features. This meta story speaks about rivers and their symbolism, which is both that of a continuity and a connection. It's almost like saying that the story goes on and it never stops. Also, this present story depicts this aspect of the continuity and the connection aspect of the symbolism of a river through an ant couple, a wife and a husband. And this is an interesting part, as ants are the smallest of creatures and one barely spares a thought about such tiny creatures in the middle of the everyday rush of our lives. However, their tiny size also speaks about a story, a hard-working story, and the learning example from this is that even the smallest and perhaps the most insignificant parts around us can teach us a lot. This also highlights the learning example that one can gather from an ant. One never moves away from shouldering a responsibility or from hard work. Thus, this meta story is an important example of learning from what seems to be an insignificant part around us. There is also another important aspect in today's story, and that is the reflection of the male and female rivers of India. And what do they really tell us? There are numerous examples of male rivers in India. Say in Bengal area, there are several male rivers like Ajoy, Pagla, Godadhar, Damodar, and many others. Then there is the Shon or the Shonbhadra, for example, or even the Rangit from Bengal, or the Bhaga of Chandrabhaga, where Chandro is the female river. So, of course, likewise, there are also female rivers across India, including the Tista, the Ganga, Godavari, Narmada, Podda, and many others. Podda, of course, is part of Bangladesh, but nevertheless, it is a branch of the main Ganga river, which divides into two as it enters West Bengal. The one flowing down into Bengal is the Hooghly, and the one that enters and flows down through Bangladesh is the Podda. Interestingly enough, there are various folklore and mythological stories about each of these representations within our oral traditions, which also includes the larger part of South Asia, including the neighbouring states of India as well. There are also oral traditions of fishermen and women, and also songs of boatmen who call out to the river with respect. Thus, these oral narratives almost impart a form and a structure, or one can even say it's like giving an image or a framework to an otherwise structureless entity. The present meta-story or the folklore closing is also an unique representation of a water body as a whole, irrespective of the fact whether the main folklore spoke about a male river or a female river. But at the end, what is to be highlighted through this meta-story is that it is a joint effort of both forces which creates the whole and helps to pull through a situation which is narrated through the story. This story was collected and first published by Upendrakishore Ray Chowdhury from the region of Mymensingh, which is in present-day Bangladesh, and this was part of his famous Tuntunir Boi, which he published from his own press in Kolkata. The story has been translated by myself and is part of my complete translation of all the 63 stories of both the books Tuntunir Boi and Golpomala by Upendrakishore, which were published sometime between 1910 and 12. Upendrakishore also immortalized this very small meta-story through his innovative drawing of an ant couple riding a small chaff or a grain or the husk of a grain of rice. This particular drawing, famous one, was a line drawing, and this was another reason why the book Tuntunir Boi still stands as a historical example, because this was the book, the very first attempt made through this book to introduce line drawings through publication in the first quarter of 20th century, because previously all that printed children's books had were lithographic prints. This was the first time when printed literature gradually started to move away from lithographic prints, having their very own line drawings. Being an expert in printing technology and also a very talented artist himself, Upendrakishore drew all these drawings for this book, Tuntunir Boi, including the picture of this ant couple. And all of these drawings remain famous till today. Follows the story from my book, Collected Works of Upendrakishore Ray Chowdhury by Aleph Book Company. I would also like to introduce the author. Follows a small introduction of the author. This is a story from my book, Collected Stories of Upendrakishore Ray Chowdhury by Aleph Book Company. This book is an English translation of all the 63 stories of the two Bengali books by Upendrakishore, Tuntunir Boi, which was published in 1910, and Golpomala, which was published somewhere between 1910 and 12. The book Tuntunir Boi is a collection of fables, while Golpomala has not only fables but many folklore from across the world, which Upendrakishore rewrote in Bengali. Many of these stories were part of Bengali children's magazine Sandesh, which was started by him but unfortunately stopped at his untimely death. It was revived by his son Sukumar Roy once again, but once again stopped as Sukumar Roy suddenly passed away at a very young age. Finally, many years later, it was revived by Upendrakishore's grandson Satyajit Ray. Upendrakishore specially collected these stories for both Tuntunir Boi and Golpomala from various parts of Moymonsingo district, which is in present-day Bangladesh. Upendrakishore was a prolific writer, poet, illustrator and publisher, and his name is specially known in the area of children's literature in Bengali. He was also the first printer and publisher to introduce modern block making, including half-tone and color block making in South Asia. He is the father of noted writer, poet and illustrator Sukumar Ray and grandfather of author Bharat Ratna and Oscar awardee Satyajit Ray. This story, like the rest of the stories from the same book Tuntunir Boi, has been a part of Bengali folklore across centuries. This story is still famous in the regions of eastern India as well as Bangladesh and also within the diaspora across the world wherever Bengali is spoken. The story is also a symbolic representation of the struggles which Indians endured during the British colonial times and the many unjust, oppressive and coercive rules, regulations and taxations which made them suffer severely, and thus these were also criticized across India.
The story, The Ant Couple, Mr. and Mrs. Ant. The original name of the story in Bengali is Pimpri or Pimprir kawtha. To note, the word Pimpri in Bengali means ant. In the story, however, it means or rather represents Mr. Ant and Pimpri represents Mrs. Ant. Also note, at the very end of the story, there is a small chora or a rhyme, which is also a very typical representation or a part of many folklore closings, quite similar to the present story. The story. There once lived an ant couple, Pimpri and Pimpri. One day, Pimpri said, "Pimpri, I want to travel to my father's house. Do fetch a boat for me." Pimpri got a paddy husk. Overjoyed at the sight of the makeshift boat, Pimpri said, "What a beautiful boat! Come, dear, take me to my father's house." Thus, both Pimpri and Pimpri sat on the floating paddy husk and it gradually moved down the river. However, after travelling a little distance, the husk suddenly got stuck at the corner of the river bank. So, Pimpri said to Pimpri, "I will push it now, you come and push too. My stories end here, on this queue.